I was sitting in a conference hall, watching Derek walk to a podium. The room held maybe 400 people. Derek was dressed well. Navy blazer. A watch I did not recognize. He had the ease of someone who had done this many times. The title card on the screen behind him read, "Built from Nothing." I was in the 8th row. I had flown in that morning. Derek did not know I was there. He began to speak. He told the story of his first year. No money, no connections, no one who believed the idea was worth anything. He described the moment he decided to bet on himself. He described the client he had landed through sheer persistence. He described the version of himself that existed before any of it. The version who had nothing and no one and still kept going. I listened to every word. I knew this story. I was in it. I gave Derek his first break when no one else would. He called me 2 days before his rent was due. He had been turned down by 3 people he thought believed in him. I transferred the money that afternoon. No terms. No repayment schedule. Just go build what you said you were going to build. My name did not appear once in the next 40 minutes. Not in the keynote. Not in the slides. Not in the origin story he had told hundreds of times. I sat in the 8th row and watched my friend become the person he always wanted to be. I just was not in the story anymore. My name is Richard. I was 42 years old, and I had spent 20 years building a reputation for spotting talent in places other people did not look. It was not a skill I had cultivated. It was just something I was good at. The problem was I had never learned to protect myself from the people I helped. They always became my friends, and my friends always forgot where they started. Derek showed up at my studio on a Thursday afternoon without calling ahead. This was not unusual. Derek showed up the way weather showed up, without announcement and with the assumption he was welcome. He had a laptop under his arm and a pitch he had been working on for 3 weeks. He wanted me to look at it. I was in the middle of something, a layout that was not working, a client who was being difficult. I closed my laptop anyway and told him to show me what he had. He pulled up the deck and walked me through it. His voice was fast. He was nervous, not because he was afraid of what I would say, because he was afraid of what I would not say. The pitch was good, not finished. The numbers were wrong. The positioning was soft, but the core idea was real. I could see it underneath the rough edges. I spent 90 minutes going through it with him line by line. I did not soften the parts that did not work. I told him the numbers would get him laughed out of the room. I told him the positioning made him sound like everyone else. I also did not let him dismiss the parts that were working. The visual language, the tone, the thing that was actually his. By the end, Derek had a page of notes in his own handwriting and something different in his face. I recognized it. It was the look of someone who had just been told their idea was real. Not that it was almost real. Not that it could be real someday. It was real right now. Before he left, I told him about a contact, a client I had worked with for 2 years. They were looking to bring on a small outside vendor for a new campaign. The client was not a large account, but was a real one, a real budget, a real contract, and it would be Derek's first. I told him I would make a call. He said he owed me. I waved it off. I told him to just build what he said he was going to build. He left. I went back to my laptop. The layout was still not working. The client was still being difficult. I worked until 11. I did not think about what I had just given Derek. I had given things like it before. I would give them again. That was what I did. I did not know yet that this one would be different, that this one would cost me something I had never thought to protect. I just closed my laptop and drove home. The studio was dark behind me. Derek was already gone. I called Sylvia the morning after Derek left. She was my client contact, a marketing director who had trusted my judgment for 2 years. She did not need a hard sell. She needed a name and a reason. I told her I had someone she should meet. The work was early, but the instincts were right. I was willing to put my name on the recommendation. She asked a few questions. What kind of work had he done? What was his capacity? Standard things. I answered them honestly. I did not exaggerate. I did not need to. Sylvia trusted me. She said she would meet him. I texted Derek the details before I even hung up. Time, address, the name of the person he would be speaking to. He replied within 30 seconds. Thank you. That was all. The meeting happened the following week. I was not in the room. I had arranged it. I was not in it. That was deliberate. I wanted Derek to walk in on his own and walk out on his own. He did not need me next to him. He needed to know he could do it without me next to him. 2 hours after the meeting ended, he called me. He got it. Not the full campaign. A trial piece. A real budget. A real deliverable. He was talking fast. The words ran together. I listened and told him good. Now do the work. He said he would. He hung up. I set the phone down and went back to what I was doing. Over the following 4 months, Derek delivered the trial piece. I knew this because Sylvia mentioned it in passing at a lunch. We were talking about something else. Her cue, 3 targets. A vendor who had missed a deadline. Then she said the young vendor I had recommended had been solid. She might bring him back for the next phase. She said it the way someone mentions good weather. A fact, not remarkable. I told her I was glad to hear it. I did not text Derek. I did not tell him Sylvia had mentioned him. I did not need the loop closed. After the contract was confirmed, Derek called me. He said he needed me to know this changed everything for him. This was the one. I told him it was a start. Make sure it led to the next one. He said it would. He promised me that. I told him I knew it would. I meant it completely when I said it. He had the talent. He had the drive. He just needed someone to open the door. I opened it. He walked through. That was how it was supposed to work. I did not need credit. I did not need a return. I just needed him to do what he said he was going to do. He hung up. I went back to work. I did not think about what I had given him. I did not think about what it would cost me later. I just kept working. That was what I did. 18 months after the Sylvia contract, Derek's business had grown. I knew this from a distance. I saw it on LinkedIn. I heard it mentioned in passing by people in our shared professional circles. We still talked, but less. The calls came less frequently. The texts were shorter. When we did talk, Derek led with what he was building. I listened. I noticed that he no longer asked about my work the way he used to. He used to ask about my clients, my deadlines, the things I was struggling with. Now he just talked. I chalked it up to momentum. Busy people stop asking questions they used to ask. That was what I told myself. I did not think about it beyond that. I had my own work, my own deadlines, my own struggles. I ran into Derek at an industry event 9 months after that. A hotel ballroom, bad lighting, worse coffee. He was standing near the bar with 3 people I did not recognize. His own people now, from his own orbit. I walked over. He saw me and smiled. He introduced me warmly, by name, as an old friend. He did not say anything about how we knew each other. He did not mention the pitch he had brought to my studio. He did not mention the call I had made to Sylvia. He did not mention the 90 minutes I'd spent going through his numbers line by line. He just said, old friend. I shook hands with the people I did not know. Derek and I talked for 6 minutes. He asked how I was. I said good. He told me about a new client he had just signed. I said that was great. Someone pulled him away. He said we needed to catch up properly soon. He disappeared into the room. I stood by the bar for a minute. Then I got another coffee and went back to the tables. A week later, a mutual contact named Dev messaged me. He said he had had coffee with Derek, and that Derek's name kept coming up in serious rooms now. He said it almost offhandedly, like he was just telling me something I already knew. He wrote that Derek had a great story too. Self-made. No safety net. Just grounded out from zero. I read that message twice. Self-made. No safety net. I typed back good for him. I closed the app. I did not call Dev. I did not call Derek. I put my phone face down on my desk and finished what I was working on. But the message stayed in my head. Self-made. No safety net. That was not what I had seen. I had seen a man who showed up at my studio with a laptop under his arm. A man who needed 90 minutes of free feedback and a phone call to a client who trusted me. I had given him both. I had never asked for anything in return, but I had also never asked to be erased. That was what bothered me. Not the credit, the erasure. I sat at my desk and tried to figure out whether Derek had decided that his story was true or whether he had just told it so many times that the part with me in it had worn away. I did not know the answer. I was not sure I wanted to know. I was asked to speak on a panel at a mid-size industry conference. I prepared my remarks and attended. Before my panel, I sat in on the session before mine. a conversation about mentorship and early career support in the creative industry. One of the panelists brought up Derek by name. She said he was an example of someone who came up without institutional support and built something real. A case study in pure self-determination. She listed his company, his trajectory, his keynote at a different conference the year before. She did not know I was in the room. I sat in the third row and listened to my friend described as a man who had done it entirely alone. I did not move. I did not raise my hand. I just listened. After my own panel, a young woman approached me. She was early in her career. She had attended my session specifically. She asked me about my philosophy on supporting emerging talent. I talked to her honestly. I told her I had always believed in making the call, using my credibility to open a door when I saw something real in someone. She asked if I had any examples I could point to. I paused. I thought of Derek immediately and automatically. His face in my studio, the 90 minutes of feedback, the call to Sylvia, the trial piece that became a real contract. I opened my mouth to say his name. Then I closed it. I said a few. People who went on to do good work. I did not say Derek's name. She thanked me and walked away. I watched her go. I understood something I had not fully articulated to myself until that moment. I had started editing Derek out of my own story in the same rooms where he had edited me out of his. I did not want to be the person who claimed credit for someone else's success. But I also did not want to be the person who let someone else's success be used to erase the people who had helped them. I was both of those people now. I did not know how to be neither. I drove home after the conference and called my sister from the car, not to tell her about Derek specifically. I started talking about the panel. The young woman's question. The panelist who had cited Derek as a case study in pure self-determination. My sister listened. When I finished, she asked if I had ever said anything to him. I said no. She asked why. I did not answer right away. The car was dark. The highway was empty. I told her I did not know. But I did know. I had not said anything because I was afraid of what it would mean if I did. That the friendship was not solid enough to survive the truth. That Derek would defend his story instead of hearing mine. That I would lose something I had already lost but had not admitted to myself yet. My sister did not push. She just said okay. I told her I would call her later. I hung up and drove the rest of the way in silence. The silence felt familiar. I realized I had been sitting inside it for months. Not the silence of a quiet room. The silence of a friendship that had stopped being anything real and had just become two people who used to know each other. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a while. I still did not know what I was going to do about it, but I knew I could not sit in the silence forever. I texted Derek and asked if he wanted to get lunch. He responded the same day. Quick, warm. He said he had been meaning to reach out. We set a date. I did not plan what I would say. I wanted to see what he said first. I wanted to see how he described his own life in a room with me, sitting across from him. No editing. No secondhand messages. Just the two of us and whatever came out of his mouth. Lunch arrived on a Tuesday at a restaurant between our offices. Derek was good company. He always had been. He talked about the business, the team he was building, a partnership he was close to closing. I listened and asked questions. I was not performing interest. His work was genuinely interesting, but I was also watching for a name, a reference, a single acknowledgement of the thing that had happened. At no point in 90 minutes did Derek mention Sylvia, or the trial campaign, or the call I had made, or the afternoon in my studio with the pitch. Not once. It was not that he brushed past it. It was that it did not exist in the version of his life that he inhabited. The story he told himself had no room for the part when it played. I was just the old friend he was having lunch with. That was all. On the walk back to his car, Derek clapped me on the shoulder. He said we should do this more often. It was good to have people in your corner who had known you from the beginning. I stopped walking. I looked at him. I asked if he remembered how the Sylvia contract came about. He looked at me. A beat. Then he said he had pitched her. It took a few tries, but he got in front of her eventually. I nodded slowly. I said, yeah. Okay. He asked why. I said no reason. Just thinking about that period. He said wild times. He smiled. He walked to his car. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Then I walked to mine. I sat in the driver's seat with my hands on the wheel. He had not hesitated. He had not stumbled. He had looked me in the eye and told me a version of events that was simply not true. And he had not done it maliciously. That was the part that landed. He had genuinely replaced a memory. He believed he had pitched Sylvia. He believed he had gotten in front of her on his own. The call I made. The trust one extended. The credibility I put on the line. None of it existed in his head anymore. I had been erased not by a lie. I had been erased by a new truth that he had constructed for himself. I sat in my car and tried to figure out what you say to someone who has rewritten their own history so completely that they are not lying when they look at you. They just do not see you anymore. I started the engine and drove back to work. I did not know what to do with that. I just knew I could not unsee it. I went home after lunch and opened a document on my laptop. Not a letter to Derek. Not a list of grievances. I started writing a piece I had been asked to contribute to an industry newsletter for months and kept putting off. The piece was about mentorship, specifically about the economics of it. What it costs to make a call on someone. What it costs the person making the call if it goes wrong. And why people stopped making calls. I wrote for 2 hours without stopping. The piece did not mention Derek. It did not need to. The people who needed to see themselves in it would see themselves. The people who did not would not. I closed the document and read it once. It was honest and it was good. I called Sylvia that afternoon. I had not spoken to her in over a year. We had stayed in loose professional touch, but the working relationship had wound down naturally. I did not call her about Derek. I called because there was a project I genuinely wanted to bring her into, and she was the right person for it. We talked for 40 minutes. Near the end, Sylvia mentioned that Derek's firm was pitching for a piece of business on her side. Small world, she said. You gave him a start, did not you? I said yes. She said she thought so. She still thought about that call I made. I told her I was glad it worked out. She said I should get more credit for the people I had put in rooms. I said I got enough. She said she was not sure I did. I said I would be okay. Sylvia. She laughed. I thanked her for the call and hung up. I sat at my desk for a minute. A near stranger had just said the thing no one close to me had said clearly. I was not angry about it. I was just aware of it. The people who had watched me give were not the people who would ever thank me. That was fine. That was how I had set it up. I just had not realized how quiet it would feel. I submitted the newsletter piece that evening. I did not think about whether Derek would read it. I had stopped trying to control what he saw and did not see. The keynote invitation had been in my inbox for 2 weeks. An industry conference. A different one from the panel. I had RSVP'd yes before lunch with Derek, before the walk to his car, before he looked me in the eye and told me a version of history that did not include me. I was still going. I did not cancel. I did not check the speaker list. I just kept it on my calendar and went back to work. I did not know yet that Derek would be on that stage. I did not know that I would be sitting in the audience watching him tell his story to 400 people. I just knew I had decided to keep building rather than stop and demand recognition. That decision felt clean in the moment. I was not sure how it would feel in a conference hall with my friend on a podium and my name nowhere in his mouth. I arrived at the conference hall and collected my badge. My name was on the attendee list for a different session, a panel on creative leadership happening later in the day. I found my seat in the main hall before the keynote began. I did not know it was Derek until the title card went up behind the podium. Built from nothing. I looked at the name on the program. I looked at the stage. I stayed in my seat. Derek walked out. He was polished and easy, and the room was immediately with him. He opened with a joke that landed. He moved into the story. I watched and listened with the same quality of attention I had always given him. Complete, specific, patient. He described the early years. No money, no contacts, no one who saw what he saw in himself. He described a period of cold outreach, doors that did not open, learning to make something from nothing. He described the moment he landed his first real client as the result of relentless persistence and one cold email that somehow got through. The room nodded. People took notes. I sat in the 8th row with my program in my hand. I had folded one corner of it without noticing. Then Derek said something that made me stop. He said the thing nobody tells you about building something real is that you have to be willing to do it alone. He said nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to make the call for you. You have to be the call. I unfolded the corner of the program. I smoothed it against my knee. I looked at Derek on the stage. I thought about the phone call I had made to Sylvia. I thought about 90 minutes in my studio with a pitch that needed work. I thought about the text I had sent him with the meeting details before I had even hung up the phone. He had not asked me to make that call. I had made it because I believed in him. But he was standing on a stage telling 400 people that nobody had ever made a call for him, that he had done it entirely alone, that the whole story was that he refused to stop. I sat with all of that and did not move. Derek continued. He wrapped the keynote to applause. The room stood. I did not stand at first. Then I stood. I clapped. Not sarcastically. I clapped because I was raised to be decent and because the work Derek had done since that first break was genuinely real. The break itself was the only thing that had been taken from the story. And for me, after the applause, Derek stepped off the stage. He was immediately surrounded. People reaching for him. People wanting a moment. I watched from my seat. Derek scanned the room once in that way speakers do, checking who came, who was watching. His eyes passed over the eighth row. They passed over me. He did not stop. He had not seen me. I sat there for a moment with my program in my hand. I had a choice. I could leave. I could wait. I could cross the room. Each one meant something different. Leaving meant I accepted the story he told and walked away from the friendship quietly. Waiting meant I gave him the chance to see me and decide whether to acknowledge me. Crossing the room meant I chose to be seen rather than waiting to be noticed. I did not know which one I was going to do. I just knew I could not sit in the eighth row forever. I stood up. The room was still crowded. Derek was still surrounded. I started walking toward the aisle. I stayed in my seat until the crowd around Derek thinned. I was not rehearsing anything. I was not managing my expression. I was simply waiting the way I had always been good at waiting. When there were two people left talking to Derek and they began wrapping up, I stood and crossed the room. The carpet was blue. The lights were too bright. I walked toward him like I had walked into 100 rooms before. This one just happened to have a stage with his name on it. Derek saw me when I was about 6 feet away. His face did something. A quick sequence I had known for years. Surprise. Then warmth. And something underneath both of those that moved through and disappeared before it could be named. He opened his arms to hug me. I shook his hand instead. He asked if I was there. Why I had not told him. I said I did not know it was him until the title card. He asked what I thought. I looked at him. I said I thought it was a good talk. He asked if I meant that. I said the work he had built was real. That part came through clearly. He said thank you. He said that meant a lot coming from me. I told him I was sure it did. A beat. Something shifted in his face. Not guilt exactly. More like a man who had just heard a sentence and was deciding whether it meant what it might mean. I told him I was going to head out. I had a panel in an hour I needed to prep for. He said we should grab dinner tonight. Catch up properly. I said I did not think so, but I was glad I came. I said it without coldness. I meant it without warmth. I shook his hand again and walked toward the exit. I did not look back. I wanted my own panel. I was sharp in it. Present. Specific. Unhurried. The moderator asked me about my approach to investing in other people's work. I talked about what I had learned. That the best investments I had made in other people's careers came without contracts or formal agreements. That the lesson I had taken from that was not to stop investing. It was to be more honest about what I was doing when I did it. I did not look at anyone in particular when I said it. I just said it. The room nodded. Someone recorded it on their phone. Someone else took notes. I did not think about Derek. I thought about the young woman who had approached me at the earlier conference. The one who had asked for an example. I had not given her Derek's name. I had protected him without meaning to. I had not done it to be kind. I had done it because I was still treating the friendship like something that existed. I sat on the panel and answered another question, then another. When the session ended, people came up to me. I talked to them. I shook their hands. I walked to my car. The keynote was over. The panel was over. Derek had not texted. I had not expected him to. I sat in my car and tried to figure out what you do with a friendship that ended without a conversation. No fight, no moment, just a slow disappearance and a stage where my name used to be. I started the engine. I drove home. The silence in the car was the same silence I had been sitting in for months. I was finally used to it. That was the saddest part. I flew home the following morning. I did not hear from Derek that night or on the flight. I checked my phone once at the gate and once at baggage claim. Nothing. I put my phone in my jacket pocket and collected my bag. The car was where I had left it. The drive was quiet. The house was quiet. I unpacked and went to bed. I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. The newsletter piece ran 3 weeks later. Dev messaged me the morning it went up. Just a link and a line. This is really good. I thanked him and did not say anything else. My sister called that evening. She said she had read it. She asked if I was doing okay. I said I was. She said I gave a lot to that friendship. I said I knew. She asked if I regretted it. I thought about it honestly before answering. I said I regretted that it ended the way it did. I did not regret the call I made. She said that was a good place to land. I said yeah. I thought so. We talked about other things for a while. Then she let me go. I set the phone down and looked at the wall. She was right. I had given a lot. I had never kept score. That was not the problem. The problem was that I had never been honest with myself about what I was giving. I had told myself it did not matter if anyone knew. Then I watched someone stand on a stage and tell a room of 400 people that nobody had ever made a call for him. It mattered. It just had not mattered enough to stop me from doing it again. 2 months later, I was in my studio on a Thursday afternoon. A young designer I had been loosely mentoring sent over a revised portfolio. She asked if I had a moment to look at it. I opened it. The work was better than the last version, meaningfully better, in the specific places I had pointed to. I closed the portfolio. I picked up the phone. I called a contact I trusted. I said I had someone she should meet. The work was early, but the instinct to write. I was willing to put my name on it. I listened to her response. I said good. I would send her the details. I hung up. I opened the portfolio again. I did not think about Derek. I did not think about the keynote. I thought about the young designer who had done the work and the contact who trusted me and the call I had just made. It was the right call. I would make it again. I would make it again. That was not generosity anymore. That was just who I was. I had spent a long time wondering whether the people I helped would ever remember what I had given them. I stopped wondering. The call was the right one to make. That was the only thing that mattered. I opened the portfolio and started writing notes in the margin. The studio was quiet. The light was good. I kept working. I am over it where silence ends. Have you ever given something to someone that they later claimed they built alone and realized that giving it was still the right thing to do, even if they never said your name?